We're good now. We're back. Sorry, folks. That was exciting. They just verified that we are streaming again. OBS tells me yes, but welcome back. Thank you. Yeah, I need to expand that so you all don't see, everything. Where is full screen and grid view? Okay. Yes, I'm gonna forget the technical terms, but the electric panel where the switches are, the one that apparently my internet is hooked up to, flipped. So I'm back now, though. So thank you for bearing with us. And I was in the middle of answering a question about hi. Speaking of welcome back, I was in the middle of answering a question about the stronghold in the picture. So yes, I will. I can get up to 10 people who are in a picture. Just more than that is just a lot. So, but yes, if you submit a picture from your guild and alliance, I will send codes to the Rainbow Starry Panther to 10 people. All right. So, but yes, questions. I missed a lot, and okay, good. It didn't erase my chat. So, let's see. We're gonna go straight into. This is my kid. For those of you wondering. Yes, and she has messy hair because it's holidays, and she wanted to show off her glasses because she just joined the glasses club. Yes. Yes, those are your glasses, and they're My Little Pony. So Hasbro. So always be branding. Hi Hasbro. Okay, but I need to go back to work. Okay. Thank you for saying hello. You can stand next to me, but I gotta do work. I gotta ask very important questions. All right. Walkie Talkie Guy asks, are you planning on increasing the bonus on the recent artifact modification changes? They feel extremely lackluster at only 500 rating. Also, are you planning on increasing the number of sources of the Forte rating?
I mean, we're not going to just start adding Forte to things that already have stats. I'm sure there will be items and bonuses and all that stuff going forward that we make that have Forte. I think that's one of the things coming out of this change is certain stats that didn't have as much representation before. People are now looking for items with them on it. And, I mean, that's just going to take time as we go forward. But the good news is that gives us a lot of room for making new interesting items. As far as the amount on the offhand, I mean, the offhand's kind of always been small. I can look at it, but I don't think it's going to be particularly big.
Okay. I did see a question before I got kicked off, which is, yes, Screwfez 3D preview needs more access to all companions, trade bar store expansion. I need you to go sit down on the couch, please. I know that, yes, we started including more companions on the trade bar store, but there was, some like internal reasonings for not wanting them all on preview, correct? And like, it's going to be too much to put everything on preview, correct?
Well, yeah. So I think there's two sections there. They're not all in the trade bar store because some are meant, to be found in dungeons and chests and through different content. And so we did add access to the trade bar store, but that doesn't have all of them. To create a store that we have every item in the game on and we try to maintain for preview, it's a pretty beefy store.
Okay.
So I think it's more about trying to make sure that people have enough stuff to test really well, and we're going to keep expanding on that as we can. We've recently added VIP. And that was a big ask that people had, so that should help.
Okay, cool. Fools Play Game says might want to move your mic down. Hopefully it's still not popping anymore. Yes. So we have more questions. So currently, I think Kim asked this one. Currently, are the combat changes coming to all 3 platforms at once, or will PC get them first?
I'm pretty sure PC will get first, just because we'll probably be taking input and fixing bugs up to a couple days before we go live to PC, and that's not something we can really do for console. Console has a cert process, so just due to the nature of how we're working on this, we'll probably go PC first, and then that will give us more time to find any other issues as it gets to live and to a bigger audience before we go to console. But I don't know the time frames for that yet.
Let's see. Hey Maya, can you sing quietly, please? Please. Can we expect a balance on elixirs, potions, which give high amount of critical severity? That question's from
Yeah,
Sekomako.
so, and this probably goes back to what Walkie Talkie was trying to say as well, is crit severity, because it wasn't an actual rating and wasn't a stat that had normal sources before. Any places that gave it just gave a whole bunch of it. Now that it is in line with everything else, we have to bring its values in line with everything else. So, for example, on the offhand, bonuses, crit severity was, I believe, quite a bit bigger than all the other ones, because that's the same thing. Potions, same thing. So we have to find all those and bring them in line, just so that all the ratings work similarly, have similar rates of gain, but there is one that just is massively above everything else.
Cool. I'm trying to get to as many questions as possible, folks, so sorry if I'm a little bit behind. Mia asks, do Augment Companions still give a boost to 3 stats, or are they just not showing on preview?
They do. There's Augments had Augments had some issues with their setups, that there was multiple powers one was trying to display information, one was trying to set information, and as I was putting that all into a more streamlined thing, different parts of it kept getting knocked off. So right now, Augments are not giving their stats, but the tooltips are. Go back through and give the tooltips to the right power so that it actually shows what these 2 stats are. But the actual stat pane should show the values if you do already have it.
Okay. Hello, more people joining in. So we did have a question that, I don't know, I wish Terramac was here, which is, how are the preview batches builds named? It was weird seeing something ending in A.1 after E.4. He once explained it to me. It has to do with like the day the things are made, the build is made, and the versions. But I don't know the exact details. Jared, do you know how the builds are named?
Nope.
Okay.
That is an area of no dealings with. I don't know how any of those numbers are.
I can ask Terramac. I think he might be off today already. But yeah, it's an interesting question, because it is interesting what goes into it. Is there a date for when combat changes go live? We've had internal discussions. We're just not announcing anything because it's not set in stone. I was actually just talking to Jared about this before the stream started. And it's because we have been making so many iterations based on the feedback that we don't want to say this is the final firm date. So we're not ready to announce anything yet until we actually know a little bit more, with more certainty. And I just got pinged by Miku, the wonderful Miku, who has been writing the patch notes. So it's the date. They're named after the date we make the build, or we cut the build, and the dot is the iteration of the build. So thank you, Miku, for sending that information over. So more questions. All right, I'm going to try to go back to the older ones. I know newer ones are coming in, but yes, that one. Where the question was from Hugs the Beast, where weapon damage was taken out, how does Lost Moth set proc?
So weapon damage as a concept was taken out, but the damage that you get from item level, the game still uses that the same way. So everything that was weapon damage is that damage. We tried to go through and clean up everywhere where it said weapon damage, just say damage, but it's underneath, it's the same thing, just comes from the source. So things that proc should still proc the same way they did.
Okay. Aster Acknowledger says, 4 days ago, before the last patch, we tested 2 in the Mad Mage, and some attacks are really so strong. Am I wrong with my defensive stats, or does Tom need to be fixed or reworked in some parts?
I think it's probably a combination there. For the upcoming patch, I did reduce the multiplier on damage on Alistair and Zerial down a bit more. We originally had increased it a lot because players were saying it wasn't doing damage. As we changed defense and stuff, we brought it down. We bring it down another step. Another thing I think is 33% awareness for a tank in a trial is probably a bit low. But that alone, if for example, if we raise that to 50%, wouldn't bring that down from 1.6 million to 500K. So I'm the trials, as we've said all along, are the ones that are going to have the biggest balance issues, just because they're so hand-tuned. Each attack is hand-tuned. We're just going to have to retune all those as we adjust the other aspects of the game.
Cool. Thank you. I'm seeing also questions that are not directly related to the combat rework. And again, these streams that we've been doing for the last few weeks are focused on the combat rework, the bonding runestones, the companion changes, and we really want to keep it narrowed down to that, just like Jared has been doing with the forums. Otherwise, all these conversations get sidetracked a little too much, and we start losing track of what we need to do. And one of the things these iterations have been so effective in making these builds is because we have been keeping a very narrow focus. So if I don't get to your question, it's not because I dislike you. It's not because we're ignoring anybody, and it's just because we want to keep the focus. So Sekomako asks, Bilethorn overperforms by a lot compared to other enchants. Can we expect a second wave of balance on weapon enchants?
Maybe we'll do some more tweaks on there. The issue with a lot of the enchants was there was already an imbalance. As a lot of players know, there's only a couple options that players really considered. This wasn't, these combat changes weren't meant to tackle every form of imbalance in the game all at once, because that was an awful lot to try to tackle at once. So we weren't necessarily trying to make sure that they were now 100% in line. And as players even talk about, the more we change stuff, the more they want exchanges, the more they're concerned about how much they have to refactor their characters. So it's a pretty tough balancing act for that, but we will, take another look at the weapon enchants, try to dial in some things and get it so it's not so overpowered compared to everything else. Someone asked about flaming. I was trying out something on flaming, so the plate fire still does the ticks. The flaming does just a single burst. I was, curious to see if people found that interesting, that those two now had a bit different, so if they wanted them to still stay the same but just be thematically different. So let me know, but that's why it's not ticking, because the flaming isn't meant to be a damage over time as much as just a straight damage.
Cool. Let's see. Will the stats be changed to a percentage?
For which part?
That's all the question I have. So, Proteum, if you have more, if you want to expand on that, then we can answer that one a bit more. But it actually makes me wonder about a question. Like, when you are, doing your systems wizardry, like, what makes you decide to do stats in terms of percentage versus raw numbers? Is there like any reasoning that you can share behind that?
So the main stuff, like gear, that you're going to be changing out all the time, new modules going to be dropping new stuff. It's meant to just be the ratings. It ties in with item levels. It keeps increasing. Certain other things like companion bonuses were shifted to percents, as those tend to be, you choose from a catalog of them of which ones you want, and so them having percent bonuses makes them a much more interesting choice. Boons were made a percent because they're supposed to be bonuses to your character that you earn over time that are permanent increases, so having those just give item level and rating wouldn't work that way. Whereas guild boons are meant to kind of give you a leg up, so they're item level and ratings. So really try to be what that particular slot is for and how often it's changed out or swapped out. So there's a decent amount of solid planning there, and then for some certain items, like bell relic items and stuff like that, starts becoming more of which way should it go. So there are some items that become more of item by item, but most of it hopefully feels pretty good by the slots. For example, racial bonuses are something you pick once, so that they give percents, bigger bonus and stuff like that.
Thank you. Again, questions are going in fast, so let's see. The Raven Lich asks, will the upcoming changes focus only on combat companion changes, or will there also be class changes included specifically towards Whisper Knife or Thaumaturge, or just straight up combat changes? And the reason I'm asking this one, even though it's a way to ask a question and make it part of this, is just because there is some confusion I have seen among people who are, when systems is making combat changes, are they going class by class, or are they just taking combat as a whole?
So it is kind of two separate aspects, but I see certainly see why players group them together. So the main bulk of all these changes was meant to be the combat changes from the game as a whole, class independent, to bring scaling and ratings and all that into a better place. That anytime we start doing that is obviously when people start focusing on their builds and on balance and how their classes are going to play, which brings out a lot of those class balance questions. And obviously these types of changes can make some powers become better, some powers become worse just because the stats change and how they affect stuff. So we are tackling a bit of both. My main goal was to try to get the combat stuff in this all over the place first, because the more we change that, the more it changes the individual classes and how they play. So if we're trying to balance the classes while we're balancing this, we're going to oftentimes go back and have to rebalance what we changed on the classes. This next build has a couple adjustments for Thaumaturge. We'll probably get in, a couple of adjustments for the Whisperneck where this goes live, and we'll of course be looking at where the balance is lying between all the classes and try to see other adjustments that we can make. But this isn't also just we launch it and then, we're on to other content and we never look at balance again. We never look at classes. It's going to be, all right, now it's live. How's the balance looking? Are there things we need to tweak? How are the classes looking? What do we need to tweak? And we'll be able to get those out there continuing as we go forward, which we've had periods like that in the past too, where we started just adjusting a bunch of class powers, in a short span of time, getting around patches. So it all, it isn't, people shouldn't worry that what we do now means this is exactly how the character is stuck playing for the next 6 months or a year. We always try to look at that kind of balance and see where we can fit in changes. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, from being in the game industry and observing for years, systems designers don't ever it's kind of always a permanent work that just, it evolves. It's not like they're done with one project and move on. So at least it's what I see. Is Chicken Mancer the next class? No, I can officially confirm that Chicken Mancer is not the next class. And the only reason I'm confirming it is just because I know that if you're holding hope for that one, it would be a crushing disappointment. Crotium asks, will the races still have any advantage in combat?
Sorry, what was that?
Will the races, so the different races you can play, will they have any advantages in combat?
Some of them do. So, we didn't change what the nature of the race powers were. So there are ones that do certain stuff in combat, or certain stuff when, I think there's one when the opponent's health is below a certain threshold. So we didn't change that functionality. We just changed their stuff to work for percent stats, and boosted some numbers in some places to try to give them more even feel across the board, because there was a lot of classes or races that people felt weren't worth taking. So yeah, there's some certainly still have an effective combo.
There's actually someone asked a question that goes with that, which is, are we going to get race reroll tokens since you're changing race bonuses?
We weren't necessarily planning on giving those out, because again, we didn't change the functionality of them. We changed where they apply their bonus, and we boosted some numbers. So it's not like we took, one races and just changed the functionality in a complete 180 direction. So it's still doing, roughly what it was before. We can always look into stuff like that, but it originally was not planned to get those reviewed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's see. So again, we might get questions we got last time or before, but it's always good to be able to remind people if they missed it. Do gear bonuses count for the base stats or other sources? Are percent damage bonuses in their own category or bundled with power?
So, two very different questions. The equipment bonuses are kind of all over the place right now. That has been a thing where, as I get time, not from the other bugs and from the other changes, where I'm trying to go in and adjust some of those. Ideally, I think most of the bonuses would be percents, because they are something that's stacked on top of the gear itself. But there's not a lot of them. There's some of them are more important to fix than others, because they're the ones that players are currently focused on using, and so we want to make sure those ones have a better purpose than ones that were 6 years old and no one really uses. but we are trying to get to those. There's been a few questions about this. I try to answer in a couple places, but there is, power and defense, which are capped at 90%. There are other things that add increases to damage in other ways than power, so they do stack on top of that. And the same thing with damage resistances. There's other things that reduce those or boost those that work on top of defense. So yes, there are other aspects, and even one of the more straightforward ones is under the boost sections. You see physical and magical damage boost; those are on top of power, for example. So yeah, there's a lot. As much as we try to make the system easier and simpler to understand, there's still a lot of extra little pieces like that all kind of work in special cases. So those all still exist.
Cool. Will there be any changes to items which increase power due to the new cap on power?
Not typically, no. Power is still going to be a thing people want. DPS certainly are going to cap it easier, which is intended, but there's also, people are going to need some sources of power. We're not planning to just suddenly take all the sources of power, just change them to something else, or change them all to other damage boosts. It is meant that, it isn't just always the quest for power and damage boosts, but there are other stats that you're looking at. There's other things that you're considering. So I understand that the game's been that way for a while, where all you care about is power and damage boosts because all the other stats got capped out. But that's exactly what we're trying to move away from, so there's a lot more purpose in our items.
Cool. And I think we're halfway point, so I'm going to do a giveaway. So let's bring up Moobot. All right, I'm going to give out a few Rainbow Starry Panthers. I am joined here by my assistant for giveaways.
I'm a crazy assistant.
Yes, you are. All right. So since it is the last stream of the year, I'm gonna. Hopefully it works. I don't know if it works with numbers, but if you want a chance to to win a Rainbow Starry Panther, no, it's not rainbow today. Type in 2020, so 2020 in chat. Not in game, but in the Twitch chat. Yes. Whoa, that's a lot of entries. While people, actually, I'll ask another question while people are doing this. So I'll answer this one. It's kind of funny. There talks about something like chicken PvP from April, coming this winter event. For those of you who missed previous streams, we talked about how a lot of the event reworks had to be set aside just because we had to, update the roadmap. We talked about it during the updated roadmap stream. Just as we made adjustments to how we develop things and doing things from home. So a lot of the event rework, most of the event rework just did not get done this year. It was one of the goals that we did not meet, but it's still up there. And I know that chicken PvP was very popular. All right, so it looks like entries.
Yeah, and chicken PvP should be coming back around, I think, in the April timeframe. Don't hold me to it, I think so.
See, now that you've said that, now it can't come back. It should come back like in, I don't know, March or May and be like, April Fools.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the kisses, Maya. All right, so let's draw a few winners. All right. I'll call out all the names, and after I'm done, I'll give you instructions on how to get your reward. So, Stoutest, congratulations on a Rainbow Starry Panther. Krill the Thrill, congratulations. And Ruby True Rain. Congratulations, Ruby True Rain, Krill the Thrill, and Stoutest. You all won a Rainbow Starry Panther. I have them available in all platforms, so email community@crypticstudios.com to let me know what platform you would like your code on. So, thank you for watching, and congratulations. All right. Let's go back to more questions and the stream. All right. Let me get that back up so I can see us. Okay. And I should probably also get the chat because it's not going to be, I'm not going to be able to see questions without chat. There we go. All right. We had more questions. You mentioned that Striker Companions would be about 7 to 10% of total damage, and this seems very reasonable. But is this meant to include Indomitable Runestones and Warlords Inspiration bonuses? Because they can change things quite a lot.
No, it's supposed to be their base boost. We're still obviously trying to dial that in. We're also trying to dial in those runestones and the insignia bonus, because at the same time, we don't want it to be indomitable boost stuff so much that there's really no other choice of runestone. It goes against the whole thing of trying to make sure that there's a lot of options for people. So, and not in the build we're getting this week, but the build, probably the first build we get after the new year, I've boosted their base damage, but reduced Indomitable and Warlords, and we'll keep tweaking around those till we get everything in a pretty good spot, so that the base damage is around 7-10%, and then those still feel like they're worthwhile insignia bonuses and runestones, but also not the only thing that should be using. So, it's always tricky to get that dialed into it.
Cool. We do have 2 questions I'm seeing that have been asked in the past, but I'll ask them again. The first question is about exchanges. Is there going to be an opportunity to exchange enchants and runestones outside of bonding to allow players to help balance stats more completely? So I think you can also use this opportunity to maybe talk a bit more about exchanges in general. Like, have we made any more decisions about exchanges?
So yes, if they on preview already, there should be the Radiant and Empowered exchanges as well. I think those have been up for a few builds now. Those, as in the past, are bound exchanges. And so we will typically always have exchanges be bound, because it's to exchange something that you're using for something else that you will use. It's not meant to exchange 200 of them to do a market swap or to run the auction house or anything like that. It's there to give you something to help you swap over, and make sure that you can still have your character set up. So that's how we do those. But those exchanges are already on preview. People should be able to test them out.
For binding status, I think we're still keeping to it'll be bound to account, correct?
Yeah, we try to use to bound to account whenever we can. It's definitely better of the two.
And then some will be permanent exchanges, and other will be temporary. At least that was my understanding from last time. Okay.
When something goes away, like the bonding going away, then we leave that up, so that people, if they come back, 3 months from now or anything like that, they still have the option to exchange those, because they just have no usage of it. Whereas for the exchanges for the Radiant and Empowered, those still have uses. Those can still be used by anyone that wants to. So we put those exchanges up temporarily, so people can swap over. How long that's going to be, I don't think we know for sure yet. Okay. Now everyone says my mic's quiet. Last time I said it was too loud. I can't find the right setting.
I'm getting a bit of a tinnier sound, but it just could be, again, my connection. Or maybe a lot of people just using Twitch this morning. And so that was one question about exchanges, and then the other one question that Skull Elf, I'll permit you to do this one, even though, again, people, please don't spam questions. I try to catch those questions that aren't being spammed, but things are going fast. But Skull Elf, because you do bring up something that people have been asking about, and I know that Jared talked about this on the forums as well. But basically, like, why make all these changes at this scale at this point? Like, why are we making these big combat reworks? I know you've answered it before, but if you want to kind of go over it a little bit over again.
I would never go with the time of this point, because we are a game that's ongoing for hopefully be for another 5 to 10 years. So on that level, I'd say anytime saying why at this point is, well, we're trying to make sure the game continues on and as well, and evolves as players evolve, as gaming evolves, all that kind of stuff. As for why we're tackling these is, we did a lot of big underlying work in M16, which very big portion of that was all deep down under the hood that people didn't see, to solve a lot of problems that would prevent the game from growing going forward. Obviously, we had bumpy rollout with that. We had some issues, and we addressed as many of those as we could, following that up to smooth things out. But we still didn't have scaling working well. There's still a lot of players that were saying they didn't understand how their ratings were working, what the percents were, what they needed for the different zones, all that kind of stuff. And obviously, as I alluded to earlier, we had a system where people were still just, all they needed was power. They cap everything else, and then it was just power all the time. which made any item that came out that wasn't just a bonus to damage or power uninteresting. So we had those different problems that we wanted to solve. We also had item level that wasn't a good enough indicator, as we had with Bonding Ruin Stones, for example, had a set value but could give a wide range of stats, which just by default meant that item level couldn't be accurate. So we wanted to solve all that for player understanding, for scaling, for our content, to make sure that itemization was good going forward. And so it's a pretty big change for sure. But it is there to try to make sure that the game runs for another 5 years, for that people coming into play understand that by having the percents on their character sheet, seeing what that does, not having to worry about upgrading their companion first. Bonding Moonstones were the most important item on a character, and that it wasn't on you yourself. So it was to solve a lot of those issues and to just make a smoother experience. And that's why we're running it through on preview, to try to make sure we can smooth out that work so that when it goes live, it's not a huge disruption. It's not difficult for people to get adjusted to. But that's basically the core of it all.
So another question that was asked, do you have any plans to make campaign boons more impactful? At the moment, you don't even get 1% of the stat with all the boon points you get from finishing one campaign in most cases.
So the thing about boon points and the other stats is people obviously focused on those because they're finding out how to get their ratings to more or less where they want them to, and then they're looking for where to get the other 40% that value. And that is the type of value that doesn't scale over time, whereas ratings do. So it's not, if boons were giving 2% to different stats per boon point, we would have all the 40% capped out. We'd have nowhere to grow. We'd have nothing to do. And the boons are permanent. They're just, so you get a few boon points, you have another 1% that never goes away. You just have that character. So they're intentionally small because they don't affect item level. They're just a bonus that you get for having engaged in the content and played for a long period of time that just incrementally over time makes you stronger and stronger. So they're not meant to be very big, and we're not trying to make that 40% side of stats just capped out when we launch, and then there's no room to grow, and then back into having an issue of, well, how do we deal with that a year or 2 years from now?
Let's see. Gwedry has asked, any chance that Forte will become customizable? Current Forte presets put some classes at a significant disadvantage in PvP. Are there plans to do a balanced pass on overpowered damaging mount powers, especially Toad, Tunnel Vision, Celestial Wings?
So many different things. So on the mount powers, I think most of those complaints are the PvP side. The damages on mount powers are pretty solid. That's one of the reasons why we boosted the at-will encounter and daily magnitudes with this update, was to bring a better ratio there. Currently, there's no plans to do anything PvE-wise for those. PvP, we're still seeing how all these changes shake out to see what kind of adjustments we need for the PvP side of stuff. What was the beginning part of the question?
If Forte will become customizable.
It's always a possibility. I would definitely never say that no, it will never be customizable. We'll see how it goes once it gets live. We'll see how people are interacting with builds over time. We'll see, months from now as people have settled in, what we want to do to improve the game setup. So it's definitely not, at no point in time is it a hard no. I don't think it will become customizable before we launch Forte, but it's certainly an option that we can be considering for future times as we see how things set.
Willow, I saw your questions about the benefit ratio of guild boons, and we have been getting other questions about guilds and strongholds and how all that plays in with the different combat changes. So what I would like to do next year, starting next year, is have a stream where we do talk about all the implications and ramifications of strongholds, everything that a guild provides you, and how it kind of works for the rest of the game. But I need to sit down with the team internally to discuss who would be the best representative to talk about that, because there are questions about strongholds and guilds that I think deserve their own stream. So I'm not ignoring it, acknowledging it, but it's hopefully planned for early next year.
It's also probably worth noting on that there is a lot of stronghold stuff, procedures, how it works, how the map setup and stuff that are out of date. We've a few times put it on our schedule that was something we wanted to tackle for a module, and then the pure size and scope of that compared to the other stuff that we want to tackle and which the players want us to tackle has made that get pushed out a few times, but hopefully someday we will be able to dedicate a chunk of time to that.
Just want to just a quick side note. If anybody has access to the Netflix show, The Holiday Movies That Made Us, they cover 2 movies. One of them is Elf, one of them is Nightmare Before Christmas. During the Nightmare Before Christmas part, they do the best explanation of what a producer does. Now, this is for the movie industry, but and in the movie industry, it's often whoever, if you pay money, you're a producer. But no, this is someone who's actually talking about the production of the development of the movie. And this woman explains how she has to make everything make sense. So when Jared mentioned scope, our production team, that's what they do. They try to make resources and time work together. So yeah, but I know Stronghold has been on the map since I started working here for a while. It's a big undertaking. Let's see. Other question: with the upcoming combat changes, will there be an easier way to obtain greater shards of empowerment?
No, there's no changes to those. It's not meant to be an overly common currency. Non-callers are going to be one of the later, or even one of the last things that you kind of build up on your character. So they're not meant to be super common everywhere yet, and it's still a relatively new system. So there isn't, as systems exist on live for a while, people tend to max out what they need, and then that starts flowing more of the currency into the economy and that kind of stuff. So I think we still have a little time to see how that, where they come price-wise and commonality.
Mia asked, will the general loot changes arrive with these combat changes or at a later date? With the content taking longer to run, there is a big need for adjusted rewards.
So general loot overall changes are not coming to combat. The combat rework is pretty much an isolated build to itself for the most part. We do have a follow-up build with M20, which has new content and rewards and stuff like that. And then we already have the module after that in the works, which has a bunch of other things that are being tackled in it. So this one is pretty much to itself. One of the things we're looking at is for the leveling dungeons right now don't have the chance to drop the premium rewards that the epic dungeons, the skirmish, and the trials do because they were so easy, because they were so people could blitz through. Now that we're seeing how the balance changes out there, we're considering the chance for those premium items in those chests as well. So that is one potential change. We're also looking at potential increase overall to those premium item drop rates. So those would probably be the only reward changes that you see built in combat.
Questions are, other question is, will the enemies scale, and if so, when?
Right now, the places that enemies scale is only in, well, I guess I should rephrase this, because the enemies never scale. The only places that the player is scaled down in the queues, so the leveling dungeons, epic dungeon, trial skirmishes. Players get scaled up in the strongholds, and we will see with some different events that players will get scaled up those as well when we put these changes through, which will make stuff like the help hit and those types of events a bit better for everyone as a whole, because if you're too low, you can still participate in them because it'll scale you up. And then right now on preview, we also have scaling up in PvP to try to make those matches a bit better as well. But the enemies themselves never actually scale. They're set, and there are certain places where you scale to them.
Prism, who has been waiting for a bit, and their question was on my list, so they asked again. So I will. Some classes are suffering from not having feat magnitude adjusted. Is there plans to come for this?
So the I think it's a bit trickier than that. So these changes kind of disrupt the whole balance classes, just because the way different stats are played, the way different feats apply certain stats. We're going to be in a new area of balance, and we want to see where the classes are in relative to one another and where we have to make adjustments. So we weren't planning on adjusting the magnitude feats specifically at this point until we saw where everyone kind of ended up. But we will, of course, be looking at the overall balance of the different classes and trying to tweak them close together much like we did, I'm not even sure now, maybe 6 months ago, where the M16 work had settled and we were looking at PS classes and we started adjusting them all to try to bring them in close range to each other, and we got fairly close on that with obviously Thaumaturge and Whisper Knight feeling a bit behind. And so we'll certainly be doing that again, trying to make sure all the classes get within a certain range of each other and feel pretty good, because the end goal of these changes is that the combat feels good, it's fun, is that all the classes feel good to play. So we will keep looking at it all, but I don't think it's quite as simple as just increasing some magnitudes on feats. Even that, for example, may not make a class perform balanced other classes. They may need some other power changes. They may need, something more significant. So it is going to be very much watching how classes play, how people build, how things can tackle the content. As someone asked, is Assassin still a baseline? We probably have to see. The real reason we picked Assassin's baseline last time was they turned out to be right around where we wanted it. We're going to have to see where everything lines up and see if that's still them or if some other one is better in that spot. But in the end, just like last time, we want everyone to be within a few percent of each other, so that there is no class that feels like you have to play that one to be good or playing this one feels too bad. So that's always going to be a long-term goal.
So Misfit Mouse asks, will there be a cap to sell bondings? Like, is there only so many bondings you can sell, or can you just sell as many bonding runes, like exchange bonding runestones as you have?
No, you can exchange them all. It's they're trying to make sure that they can get swapped out of the economy. We don't want people to be stuck with them. So, for some reason, you have 100 on your character and 100 that you can swap out.
Let's see. Control bonus, control resistance are kind of part of the main stats now. How will they play out compared to offensive stats, power, combat advantage, etc.? And what is their main contribution in combat? Thanks.
I mean, they do what they used to do. They're just in a different format for how they're calculated now. So control boost still increases either the effect or duration of the effect or both on the power. And resistance does the exact opposite, reduces the effect or reduces the duration of both, again, depending on the power. It's been interesting. There's been a lot of talk about control with this update, whereas in the past there wasn't that much player focus on it. People weren't as interested in it due to some of the limitations, like, for example, it doesn't have an effect on main bosses. But I think it's shown that there is an interest in control and having it be a bigger part of the game or find ways that it can play more into the game. So I think that opens the door for us to look into that and see what we can do there. But right now it works the same as it always did. It's just how it gets calculated as percent is now it's a rating like everything else, like almost everything else. So it's just in line with all those stats. It's still mixed.
So kind of a follow-up to, I think, Misfits, which was the bonding exchange. Someone said there are still Neverwinter... There are still Neverwinter star packs that include bondings. Will those be adjusted, or is the AD trade-in? I believe that we're trying to get any packs that have stuff that won't be in the game. But there are times when we miss one or two things, so we always appreciate when people let us know. But I think, Jared, that should be part of the pass, right? To updo or to redo old packs, or not?
Yes, we're definitely trying to find all the sources with the combat rework to pull it out. I think part of it is now that the announcement is out, people are trying to find all the sources on live to find essentially the best AD farms because they trade for so much AD. With that, it's kind of what it is. We're not going to take any of those away from people. We obviously turned off the trade bar purchasing of them. There's always the chance that if some other source proved to be a bit bad, we would turn that off before these changes went live. But once these changes go live, we're hopefully have all those sources turned off anyway.
There was some discussion a bit earlier in the chat about how if combat changes are coming before M21. While we're not ready to say a specific date at this point, just because it's not set in stone, I can say it's going to be before M21.
And before M20.
Yeah, and before M20. So, but it's not going to be like over winter break or anything like that, or while we're on holiday, because we like our employees and we don't want to make them work over the holidays, because that would be very sad. So yes, but it will be before M21 and M20. Let's see, there was another question. We're starting to get into more other areas of the game. So, Jared, unless I've missed something... Oh, okay, so one came in. Will other contribution percentage be fixed for healing before the changes go live? Currently, you do the same healing with 60% power and 90% power, considering your Radiance contribution is capped.
I'm not 100% sure on that question. So power, if power is not applying properly healing, then that is something I would actually want to get fixed. But, 90% power should be applying 90% healing. So someone did point out a bug that critical strike for healing wasn't getting the full effect. I tracked that down recently. I forget if that was before or after the build that's going out this week, but we did find that one and fix it. So if there's an issue with power, then we certainly want to get that fixed.
Okay. And I did see questions earlier in the chat about where to put off-topic questions. The forums are always a place to go over, to put your questions. I do my in-depth sweep of the forums every Monday. I also check out Reddit every now and then, or at least I have my eyes on it. I just might not always reply to that. So check the forums daily, but the big sweep comes on Mondays. So, just post in whatever category feels appropriate, feedback, bugs, and whatever game platform you play on. And we do try to take a look at as many as possible. And they get reported on a weekly basis to the team. So before we have 4 minutes, so I wanted to cover, if you've missed any of these streams and you'd like to see the evolution of how we've, taken feedback into consideration, other questions answered, I've been uploading you can always catch them on Twitch, watch them later, but I also upload them to YouTube. There is a Combat Rework playlist, then I'm trying to find the best way to organize them. We've been putting patch notes in the preview forums, but I'm thinking of doing one blog post where it has embedded all the streams, all these Q&As, plus direct links to each of the patches. That way people can see a natural evolution to these changes. So that's one thing I'm considering to be able to better present the information. All right, Jared, any questions that you want to answer that I might have missed? Anything you're seeing right now? Otherwise, we will continue to wrap up, or we'll start wrapping up.
There wasn't anything in particular. I definitely missed a lot while talking. Struggled to both read comments and speak at the same time.
Yeah, I had that same question. I had the same issue too, trying to copy and paste and make sure I was asking the right ones. So definitely things we missed. We'll see where we are when we start the new year. If people find these Q&As informative and useful, definitely circle back with Jared to see if he can extend more of his time to us. But other than that, thank you for tuning in, everybody. It's been wonderful being able to touch base with everybody on this topic with this cadence. There is another, like we mentioned, there's another build coming out hopefully tomorrow. That should be it for the year, for the rest of 2020. And then when we come back, we'll restart these conversations. Jared, are you going to spend some more time in the forums answering questions and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, I was trying to clean up a couple of threads this morning. I think I answered a couple of things, and we'll keep doing that. Obviously, at some point, the holiday break will be coming up, so I will, players may expect a bit less on the forums during that time. But then, obviously, we'll dive right back into it again for the new year and stuff.
Cool. Again, yes, hopefully new year. But everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. You've been awesome. Jared, thank you so much for giving us your time. And have a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and stay safe and healthy, everybody. We care a lot about you folks, so just stay safe. Bye-bye.